In Lehighton, Pennsylvania, the name Franz Kline is known, but not appreciated. Franz Kline was at once a frail, sensitive human being, but also an all-American boy. We are sitting on the porch of the Kline home at one time, and with me is Becky Finsel, Becky Rabenold Finsel. The connection, of course, is that Becky's Aunt Gladys was a very close friend of Franz Kline. Here at 300 South 9th Street in Lehighton was the home of the Kline family from about 1925 to 1931. Now, that doesn't span an awful lot of time, perhaps, but it was the formative years of the artist Franz Kline. Becky is a researcher, and she has been doing research work on the life of and paintings and work of Franz Kline for many years. She also, of course, is a biographical publisher of sorts, at least writer, and hoping to publish some of the early works of Franz Kline. She has been a journalist for 15 years. She currently works with the Times News here in Lehighton. And our Coffee Break show today is dedicated to some of the memories and the works and some of the great things that are happening in Lehighton because of Franz Kline. Hi, Becky.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Many people in the area, know the word and hear by other people who Franz Kline really was. However, I believe that he had not been appreciated as much as he should have been. In his early works, we've seen the abstract expressionist work, and that's what he's really known for, most of all. But we want to really get to the roots of Franz Kline. How can we do that?
Well, I've collected many of his earlier works over the past few years, and hopefully they'll be published someday. And by them being published, art students and scholars and professors will be able to study his earlier movements, his technique, and possibly find a link between his early works and his later works, because for many people his later abstract works are a puzzle. They don't understand them.
You have been collecting piles of information on Kline himself. Is there anything really outstanding that you had noticed that perhaps no one else has really come upon?
Many people think that Franz Kline had a terrible childhood. Most of his biographies say that his childhood was miserable and bleak, but he actually lived an almost Norman Rockwellian. He had a Norman Rockwell type childhood. He played football, he swam, he went camping, and I think he had a wonderful childhood.
Kline was born, of course, in Wilkes-Barre.
Right, on River Street.
And lived there for his younger years. I understand then that the family moved here to Lehighton.
Right. His father committed suicide when he was 7 years old, and he was sent to the Girard College School for Fatherless Boys in Philadelphia. He had a sister and two other brothers, but he was the only one who went to Girard. His older brother, Fred, wasn't accepted into Girard because he had bad eyesight. So he and his sister went to the Episcopalian home in Jonestown, and his younger brother, Jack, went to live with an uncle.
So the people who actually lived here in this house at 300 South 9th Street consisted of?
His mother. She was formerly Annie Rowe Kline, and she married Arlington Snyder from Lehighton, who worked for the Lehigh Valley Railroad. She lived here for the remainder of her life. She lived here until the 60s. And he had 3 stepbrothers and sisters who lived here, and his brothers and sister, and himself. Okay. So there were about 6 children.
You say his brother and his sister, so that's Louise and Jack.
And Fred.
And Fred. Mm-hmm. Okay. They all lived here.
Right.
What happened to Fred and Jack and Louise? Where are they now?
Well, both Fred and Jack are deceased. Fred became a trained soloist. He used to sing at St. Mark's Church in Jim Thorpe. His brother Jack was a high school principal in the Philadelphia area, and Louise was head of the English department at Elizabethtown College.
And Louise is still living in New York?
No, she lives in State College.
Oh, I see. Okay. One of the things that we're really interested in here is something that is gaining a great spirit in the Lehighton area among just perhaps a handful of people. There is now what is being formulated as the Franz Kline Society. Can you tell us about that?
Franz Kline Society was started by me last year when I found out there were more people than me interested in generating his memory in Lehighton. So far I've had informal meetings in my kitchen with just a handful of friends, but it's gained momentum and there are some other people that are interested in joining, so we're going to hold formal meetings starting this fall.
Very good, very good. And the Franz Kline Society you can become a part of if you are interested in by simply writing to Becky, right?
Right.
Or we can give her a call. She's in the phone book. And this is, I think, very important because we have to generate more of the spirit that is here. I think that Lehighton has a lot going for it, but to be known as the town that was the home of Franz Kline, and to this day you can look in the Lehighton yearbook and find Franz there.
Right.
With a lot of his friends. Have you gone through that yearbook lately?
Yeah, I do every once in a while.
Are there a lot of people who are still living that were his pals, perhaps on the football team or whatever?
There are some, but not many anymore.
Really?
Not too many.
Wow, that's surprising. We're going to try to track down some of them in a documentary we're going to do on Franz Kline, and Becky is helping us there only because she's the most authoritative person on Kline in this area. We're also trying to do another thing, and that is formulate a local museum gallery. Do you think that's possible?
I, at first, had hopes to establish a museum with some original Kline works in it. But I think realistically, with the cost of insurance and security, what we can hope for is an information center with a lot of his reproductions of his work and information on his background.
Good. Yes, I hope we can do that. If you want to help, again, just call me at TV 13 or Becky at home, or write to her here on 9th Street. I think what we would like to do now is take a walk around the porch here on the house. And incidentally, the home is now owned by
Mr. Jimmy Mazzatelli.
Okay.
He was a close friend of the Snyder family.
Yeah, and Jimmy's watching us here. You can't see him, but he's watching us, making sure we're saying the right things. Jimmy also had taken in there. We're going to show you an original poster now of Kline work that was done, I think, in 1958.
I think so.
And Jimmy had taken the family to see that particular exhibition. Is that right?
Right. Jimmy would take Franz's sister Louise almost every exhibit, and Franz's mother.
Okay, we're going to take a break right now to let the sponsors be known, because without them we would not be here. But we'll be right back with Becky Finsel on the porch at 300 South 9th Street here in Lehighton, the former home of Franz Kline and family.
The Coffee Break Show is being brought to you by Dr. John W. Sherwood, who practices dentistry for adults and children. He is conveniently located at the Sportelli Business Complex on 185 Delaware Avenue, Suite B. Dr. Sherwood believes in a relaxed environment for his patients. Any questions about procedures, he will send you brochures on dental topics. John Sherwood is a Blue Cross and Blue Shields participant and accepts most dental plans. Dr. Sherwood is always willing to welcome new patients. Call 215-826-3656. The Coffee Break Show is also being brought to you by the Mahoning Farmers Market, located in the beautiful Mahoning Valley. The friendly, courteous merchants offer a wide variety of products, including meat, poultry, seafood, and fresh produce. The tantalizing aroma of the freshly roasted peanuts, barbecue chicken, and old-fashioned baked goods will surely entice you. Visit the arts and crafts, jewelry, tools, and clothing booths. For a delicious snack or a complete meal, stop by our restaurant. Whether you're here to shop or spend the day, we have something for everyone. Shop the thrifty way of the Dutch. Shop the Mahoning Farmers Market.
Becky, this particular piece has been kindly loaned to us by the Lehighton Library today. Here on the porch at 300 South 9th Street. What does it depict?
It shows one of his more famous abstracts made into a poster to advertise a Sydney Janus showing in the 50s.
And, of course, Franz was still alive in 1958 when this particular exhibition was going on. And Franz passed away in what year?
1962.
Do we know a record of what he died of?
He died of an enlarged heart. He had had a heart attack in February, and then he died in May.
The art world is familiar with Franz Kline's abstract expressionist. Probably one of his more well-known paintings to those of us here in the Carbon County area is Mahoning. And the abstracts are unusual. Some people love them, some people just think that they are a bunch of black paint on white. And that is particular if you learn about Kline, why he had become so popular, so American as apple pie. But more interestingly than that, his early works are practically not ignored, but practically set aside because of the fame of the abstracts. Can you tell us something about the early works and how important they truly are?
Well, most people don't know that these early works exist. I've talked to several curators and they've never seen anything earlier than 1938. The artwork that I've discovered is the earliest is 1925, and it ranges through the 30s to about 1936. So it's not only that they're unappreciated, it's that they don't even know that they exist. Most curators get quite excited when I tell them what I found.
Some of his work that appeared in the Lehighton, and I can't pronounce the name of the Lehighton yearbook. What is it, Becky?
I think it's Gawked and Bamble, but
okay. Some of his early work were the cartoons in that particular yearbook. And I suppose some critics say that they are beau art, the art of the 20s, and a little bit deco in a way. But that was not necessarily all of the kinds of work he did.
he did mostly cartooning in high school because he did aspire to be a cartoonist. He wanted to be a cartoonist. But he did also some linoleum block cuts, which are very, very fascinating. And I'm sure many people would get excited to see them because they're very intricate.
Even in his early abstract days in New York, in his studio, Franz would work, I found this quite interesting, Franz would work out his basic sketches on telephone books because paper and the medium that he used, not only canvas later on, was very difficult to come by. How about his early works? Now, when he was in the abstract period, we noticed that he painted sometimes with house paint. I mean, he used cans of house paint.
Most of the time he did prefer house paint and house painter brushes.
And even in his early works, did he do that?
No, he used pen and ink basically, and tablet paper, you know, materials that a school person or a student would have.
The beauty of his early work existed somewhat in our area. Typical of one of the most famous paintings, the early paintings of Franz Kline, is called, oddly enough, Lehighton. And that particular piece, I understand, was commissioned by the American Legion.
That's correct.
And painted by Kline.
Right, in 1946 he was commissioned by Frank Beyer, who was the commander of the Legion, and he was paid $600 to do it. And now it's virtually priceless.
We're going to go down to the American Legion and take a look at that piece. And Becky's going to point out a few things that even I didn't realize, or indeed some of the art critics or publishers, writers of Kline had recognized some of those areas. There had been a concern on how long he had taken. Is there any written record of how long it took him to paint that particular mural?
I haven't found any record, and I've interviewed several people that had seen him working on it, and I can only surmise that it took a few weeks. He was a very fast painter. I know he's painted portraits of people in an evening.
Wow. Because as a couple of friends and I went down to the Legion to take a look at it the other day, and we wondered where he started. Is there any indication on that mural where he started? Did he start on the left and work right? Did he paint the Carbon County Fairgrounds first? Or is there any indication in history as to where he started?
That's a good question, and I think I'm going to try to find that out. I never thought of that. That's very interesting. I know someone said they heard that he went up in an airplane and got an aerial view of the town, but I haven't been able to document that. It's just hearsay.
There are some indications. There are some indications too that there is a bit of his abstract expressionism leaking through on that particular picture. Do you think that that is true?
I don't think so. I would say more of his cartoonist movements leak through his abstracts. I think it's the opposite. He didn't find his true artistic identity until he was close to 40 years old, 1950.
Yeah. We're going to show you now, as we are talking, some of his early work, and you will be absolutely surprised because you think of him as a a pure abstractionist. Perhaps some people believe that his early work was somewhat primitive in nature. Other people think it was pure cartoon, and we're going to show you some of the other pictures as we are talking on some of his other work, including a tinge of cubism. That was a period of his,
brief period.
Very brief period. Let's talk more about right here, 1925 to 1931. He was a student at Lehighton High School. Was he a good student?
He was an average student, but he was a very excellent athlete.
And then he had a knee injury.
During his senior year, he had to retire from football, and he had been offered 3 sports scholarships, but he had to turn them down because of his knee injury. So possibly if he wouldn't have been injured, he may have entered another field, I don't know.
Wow. The other areas in school that he was interested in?
He was on the baseball team, he was also on the basketball team, he was in the class play. He had been in the art club, but he preferred the industrial arts club rather than the art club. He liked to work in the shop, the wood shop, and make props for the plays. He said the art club was more for girls. They made different they made waste cans or fabric covered flower pots, things that he wasn't interested in doing.
Was there any indication that in his very early years, perhaps age 5, 6, 7, that he was a drawer or an artist?
Definitely. At the age of 4, he's quoted as saying that he drew his first painting. He used a rhubarb stick on a slate sidewalk and drew a picture of a train.
Wow. And
his sister always says that Franz was sketching every minute of his life.
How do you like that? One would not have expected that. Franz was a solitary man to some degree, and one thinks of an artist today as a person who closes himself up in a small area. However, what the most New York critics and publicists say about him was that he was a very open man, that he would talk to people much more quickly than some of his contemporaries of that time, specifically like de Kooning, who would not talk to anyone.
Franz was very friendly, and I've never heard a bad word said about him. He had a great sense of humor, and he was very generous.
What about, can we do this? What about his life here in Lehighton? Was he? There's a tale that he may have been a ladies' man. Is that true?
That's true. I think just about every girl in the class was in love with Franz. He just had a charisma that he generated, and they say that everyone gravitated towards him. There was always a crowd around Franz Kline. He was a great storyteller.
Yeah. We are giving an open invitation to any of our viewers here on the Coffee Break program to assist us in information on the life of Franz Kline as he lived in Lehighton or as he traveled the streets of Palmerton. We ask you to call us, me specifically, at TV 13, or call Becky, because we would like your input. If you have or know of some early pieces, early drawings that people have, we would certainly keep their status anonymous. We don't want to share the world with everyone knocking on your door. So if you know of someone who has perhaps a drawing of his or has any information or recollection of Franz Kline while he was here in Lehighton, please contact Becky or myself so that we can put together thorough early years of Franz Kline in a documentary form on videotape, and also to assist Becky in the publication of a book that she's putting together.
Right.
Well, I was kind of thrilled to just step on the porch here where Franz Kline lived, and I can almost see him running around the garden, throwing a pass to one of his friends, a football or something like that. Did he do any work here at home, do you think?
Mostly, Franz loved to play. He was with his friends a lot. He spent a great deal of time over at the fairgrounds. This yard was much different when he lived here. His mother was a very avid gardener, and it was overgrown with rhododendron bushes and any kind of foliage you could imagine. His sister and he used to like to go in the barn in the back of the house and go up in the loft and watch the fireworks or the goings-on when the Lehighton Fair was. Yeah. The Lehighton Fair meant a lot to Franz. Even when he lived in New York, he would come home every year.
I understand that. He did come home very often on weekends, and did he come home when he was married to Elizabeth?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He even had Elizabeth here for a while. He thought that, see, his mother went to nursing school, and he thought that possibly his mother could help her get well, but She ended up having to be institutionalized. She was schizophrenic. But she was here for a while. She was here when he painted the Legion mural, and she was at the opening, or the dedication of the mural.
When was that?
46.
1946. Oh.
The Coffee Break Show is being brought to you by Dr. John W. Sherwood, who practices dentistry for adults and children. He is conveniently located at the Sportelli Business Complex on 185 Delaware Avenue, Suite B. Dr. Sherwood believes in a relaxed environment for his patients. Any questions about procedures, he will send you brochures on dental topics. John Sherwood is a Blue Cross and Blue Shields participant and accepts most dental plans. Dr. Sherwood is always willing to welcome new patients. Call 215-826-3656. The Coffee Break Show is also being brought to you by the Mahoning Farmers Market, located in the beautiful Mahoning Valley. The friendly, courteous merchants offer a wide variety of products, including meat, poultry, seafood, and fresh produce. The tantalizing aroma of the freshly roasted peanuts, barbecue chicken, and old-fashioned baked goods will surely entice you. Visit the arts and crafts, jewelry, tools, and clothing booths. For a delicious snack or a complete meal, stop by our restaurant. Whether you're here to shop or spend the day, we have something for everyone. Shop the thrifty way of the Dutch. Shop the Mahoning Farmers Market.
Well, a few days later, Becky and I decided to come here to the American Legion in Lehighton to see one of the most prominent mural paintings of Franz Kline. Becky, when was this painting, this mural, completed?
Okay, it was painted in 1946. It was commissioned by Frank Beyer, who was the commander at that time.
And meaning, of course, that it was commissioned, there must have been a fee paid to Kline for this particular painting.
He was paid $600 to paint the Legion mural.
And what we understand is it is on oilcloth, is that correct? And then pasted to the wall?
That's correct. He painted it on oilcloth, which was first glued to an outer wall with a beer paste.
So it's in the nature of the American Legion, right? Especially because it's right behind the bar. We're going to take a look at several things that we have noted here on this Kline painting entitled Lehighton. Keeping in mind that it is not a true nature of Lehighton, but rather almost the artist's imagination. Is that right?
That's correct. Franz was ridiculed sometimes even harassed, because it wasn't an exact replica of Lehighton, and he would reply that he's an artist, not a photographer.
Okay, so some of the things that you see are not going to be in their correct places, according to, if you are from Lehighton, according to the way Lehighton actually looks. But they are the artist's imagination and his memory of what had occurred. So we're going to take a look at some of those specific places and reveal something, honestly, that no other art critic has ever noticed about this particular mural. The steam locomotive has meant a lot, not only to the Carbon County area, but to Lehighton and Palmerton, two of the communities signaled by Kline. Of course, his more or less hometown of Lehighton shows the locomotive, the steam locomotive, as a very prominent part of the mural here at the American Legion. Why do you think that is, Becky?
Well, Franz was fascinated by trains ever since he lived in Wilkes-Barre. The first drawing that he ever drew was a train on the sidewalk of his Wilkes-Barre home with a rhubarb stick at age 4. And then coincidentally, his mother married a man who worked for the Lehigh Valley Railroad. And Franz was really intrigued by the trains. He would go down behind the Lehighton 5 and 10 and sit on a bank and sketch trains for hours. He was particularly interested in the big steam train called the Black Diamond.
Yes, there's been much speculation on what really happened to the Black Diamond, but Franz, not only here in this mural, is able to capture a portion of that Black Diamond on the back of a manila envelope, I remember.
Right. And he also did a few pencil sketches that he would sell to his friends.
Also in this picture, we're noticing a couple other things. On the far right, in the lower corner, we're seeing a building, a red building called the Carbon House. Is that correct?
Right. That's the Carbon House. And across the street, another hotel, Hotel Lehighton. Both a place where railroaders would stay.
Of course, in the picture, too, we also see the park in Lehighton and the statue there, and what looks to be like an honor roll.
Yeah, an honor roll of veterans of the, I guess it was the Korean War or World War II. One interesting part of the mural is off to the far left is the Lehighton practice football field. Most people who come here and look at the mural don't see that, but it's very significant because Kline was a great athlete and he was offered 3 sports scholarships and probably would have taken one if his knee wouldn't have been injured as a senior in high school.
The Carbon County Fairgrounds, very prominent in Franz's life because he lived so close to it. It's prominent in this mural as well. It takes the foreground. Here's the Carbon County Grandstand, which no longer stands. Although we do see some remnants and pictures of horses that are in the center of that racetrack. Also some trotters down in the far right corner. The stables are in the background, and they were important to Franz's life. His house is right behind them. Tell us a little something about that, Becky.
Franz's house is, as George said, right aside of the horse stables on the mural, and behind, to the right, I believe it's his barn, where his sister and his brothers and he used to go up in the loft and watch all the activity at the fair, and sometimes they would have fireworks, they would watch those. And the stables were where he used to go with his friends.
Male and female.
Male and female. Yeah.
The house that you notice in red was the house of his very, very good friend. Actually, it was up the street about 4 or 5 houses, but Franz did something to that house. What did he do?
The house located right across the street on the mural is the home of Lauren Bisbing, who was a close friend of his, and it actually should have been shown 3 or 4 houses up the street. And when he was questioned about why Lauren's house wasn't in the proper place, he said because they were so closely knit as friends, he wanted their homes to be right aside of each other.
And now we're going to show you something in close-up that no one has ever really seen unless you get very close to this mural. Watch this. This is the home of Franz Kline, as he saw it right next to the Carbon County Fairgrounds. Becky and I discovered something. Actually, Becky discovered it. When you get very close to this painting, we see something special.
There's a heart located right at the peak of the roof over Franz Kline's home, and it shows how dear his home was to him in Lehighton.
There it is, right there, very faintly, sort of camouflaged in the trees. We can see a heart right over his house, and it does tip the eave of the house. Right next to that is a backward K, which appeared to be the signal for the beginning of a kite, which Franz often flew in the fairgrounds. But this is definitely a K, the K similar to some of his self-portraits, and there's definitely a heart right over the house. There's no mistake of that. Becky Rabenold Finsel, I thank you very much for talking with us today on Coffee Break and bringing back some astounding material, telling us of it, of Franz Kline in Lehighton. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We're going to end this portion of Coffee Break just by taking a look at Franz Kline's mural here at the American Legion. Please do what we say, and that is live well, laugh often, love much, and please remember Franz Kline.
Break. Hello, Dave.
Hot. Awfully hot in here, boys.
Nice
a
to
little warm
see
in
you.
here.
Well, I couldn't be worse.
What's the matter?
I couldn't feel worse.
No,
I
why?
feel just terrible.
What's the problem?
Well, you remember Anthony Newley was on our show on Friday.
Last Friday night.
Graciously consented to come and sing the viewer mail theme and then segue into a little thing that we wrote, which is sort of a good-natured send-up of the kind of stuff that he likes to do. And we all had such a good time, and came the air show. I guess I got a little excited. I played the song for him about a good octave higher than it should have been, and forced him to sing. And he's such a pro, too, you know.
He went ahead. He didn't
A
stop.
normal person would have said something's wrong, it's in the wrong key. I would have stopped. So he hit it in the key an octave higher, sang higher, really, I think, than I've ever heard a human being have to sing.
We got calls from kennels on Long Island.
And I haven't been able to sleep all week, and I feel so...
Well,
Tony,
he's not upset about it, is he? He's not angry. He understands. Mistakes can be made.
I'm sure he understands.
Yeah.
But it was just a mistake. But if I could just say, Tony, you know, what kind of fool am I? That's really what I have to say, and I'm sorry.
Could I have a squeegee or a sponge, please? Or a big, thirsty bath towel? Damn, it's hot in here.
Are you a little warm?
Does it seem a little hot to you?
Well, I got a little warm just now,
heavens, it's a little warm in
Apologizing
here. We
to
could be
Julie, I got a
raising
little warm.
orchids. Hey, forget the orchids. We could be raising tomatoes, but damn, it's hot in here. It's those sports boys. They like it in here like a steam bath over the
come in
weekend.
here.
But
Forget it.
man, talk about sweat. And by God, let's talk about sweat, shall we? What do you got there?
There's
Thanks, Al. Nice going. I appreciate that.
It's clean.
Uh-huh.
A lovely David Letterman
Oh.
sponge. There you go.
Morty, let's get a thermometer in here and find out just exactly how damn hot it is tonight. Morty, can you hear me?
It's on the way.
Oh, good. Hot and quiet.
Yeah, that's the way we
They're
like
the
it.
audience, they're dozing, they're drowsy. Last Friday, I was in one of these moods where I couldn't stop saying, them bats is smart, they use radar.
I remember you were in a nutty mood.
I was amused by it. Nobody else was amused by it. But again, let me explain this to you. It's my impression of a dumb guy. He's home at night watching a National Geographic special about bats and how they are able to navigate and so on and so forth and feed and whatever they do. And the next day, he goes into where he works and he explains to his friend all about it. And this is what he says. He turns around and says, it goes something like this. Them bats are smart. They use radar. See, now... I don't think people understand exactly what I'm talking about, so we've put together for you a visual aid. Hal, roll the videotape, and then we'll see if we can't do some better business here with that joke. Them bats is smart.
The bat navigates itself and locates prey by using a system